and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, animal lovers. It is hot and windy out here on Djuma Game Reserve, and you can see there's some wonderful giraffe. Well, I've got my water ready, Niels has his water ready, and I hope that you are ready to jump on board for your live safari through the African bush. Hello, hello. Like I said to you, very nice to have you on board. And we have these lovely giraffe out on quarantine. They're now steadily moving away from us. But just a gorgeous. Hi everyone, it's me, Trishala, and of course, like I said, I've got Niels on camera with me down in Djuma Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands today. And it is hot. It's about 38 degrees Celsius. And wait for it, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I was practicing that all day, just because 100 seems like such a good whole number. But very hot, which means that game viewing might be a little bit difficult today, but that's okay. Already we've had a brilliant start with these giraffe and a little steenbok that's chomping away. Hello, little steenbokkie. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please use the hashtag WildEarth, use @FC in the YouTube chat stream, or of course, you can use Twitch or whatever you like. And kids, you can send your kids' questions to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. See how interested the steenbok is in all of this? Wants to be part of the action. Now, given how windy it is, it's not surprising that we have a good amount of animals out on quarantine. It's nice and open and clear, so if they can't hear a predator, at least they'll be able to see it. Oh, that little waggle of the tail was very, very cute. Now, plans for today would be to visit the waterholes. I'd love to have some good elephant action. This is the type of day that elephants don't just come to drink, but they come to play, they come to mud wallow, and most of all swim. So that would be awesome. So I think I'm going to go down Treehouse Dam, Twin Dams, and maybe even up to Chitwa. I think that would be awesome. Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one whose plans are to go to waterholes. I'm sure you'll hear more about that, but let me be off.
Look what we have here at Ndlovu Dam. One female lioness just chilling underneath the shade. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Norman Chauke, and behind the camera it's Odi. Welcome to Eco Training Prideland Conservancy. It's a beautiful day in Africa, and we're live. Beautiful weather. This morning was a little bit hot, but now we have like nice clouds, wind blowing, and a nice cat here with us, just right here at Ndlovu Dam. So this female, she's right here. She just had water. If you look on her chin, I'm not sure if you can see a little bit of like a mud patch just below her mouth. It's a good indicator that she just had a drink here, resting, waiting for impala. We actually, before the show started, we actually saw her trying to hunt something. It's very unusual that you get a cat, especially at this age or size or on her own, but here at Pridelands, we have been witnessing a very unique behavior from lions. She was part of the herd at some point, and then over the last few months, this female was on her own, and she never again rejoined with her pride. So this lioness that you probably most of you have seen alone. Rosalind, yes, that's a very good question, actually. I don't see why not, but if the wind is blowing towards the prey, it's definitely going to be quite hard for the cat to hunt. Obviously, they will smell the animal, but if the wind is on her favor, she would definitely give it a go. But seeing where she is now, she's quite exposed, but the Camelthorn, it's working quite well, because she tried to hunt not so long ago before we started with the show, like I said. But in this case, anything is possible. We're still in the African bush. Anything can happen. She can go up and start hunting at any given stage. You can see she's just like resting, saving some of her energy for later on.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl. Behind the camera is Glenn, and a warm welcome to Tswalu Kalahari. Alright, picking off from this afternoon, obviously all things pay off. Good afternoon, guys. From this morning, we were following these two boys, and in the mix of things midday, they took down an oryx. And looking at the horn length, a pretty big oryx. So there was a very important question asked this morning. Would they take down an individual with horns like that? I said in the beginning that those horns are formidable weapons. But somewhere along the lines, being in a group, having a partner next to you, you definitely have more power and more weight to tackle these dangerous animals. So this animal could have been a young individual, could have been injured, it could have just been at a time where things just needed to happen. And these two boys got lucky. And like I said, they were looking hungry this morning, and that hunger obviously drove them to take down this magnificent animal. So we thank the oryx, because without the oryx, these magnificent animals wouldn't be here. And what a sight to see. If it does roll over, just please be advised, everybody, they are feeding. There's a little bit of blood around the face. You can see that the one male now is getting tucked into the hindquarters. Well, it's going to give the oryx a nice snuggle. It's typical snuggle weather. And look how big those tummies are. Oh my word. Big food baby. Really distended. So anywhere between 8 and 12 kilograms. We spoke about the intake this morning. And it's pretty incredible to see from the beginning of these boys that we found this morning, and how they were scanning, kind of taking things easy, reserving energy, and everything played out for them. Patience is key, and experience also would have been a big draw card for these two males, because experience is vital to know how to handle this animal. One would have been on the hindquarters, slowing it down, and then when the opportunity presented itself, the other individual would have gone for the throat. Arms around the neck, drawing himself closer towards the neck of this magnificent beast, and then clamping down with all his might. And then the other individual trying to trip it. Still dangerous. Even a swipe or a kick can inflict quite a bit of damage onto an animal like this. Fragile bones, small muscles, so they've got to be careful nonetheless. But they have succeeded. Look at the muscles. Oh my word. Just right. A little bit of a gory part there, guys. Just be advised, please. Well, you can see he wants to get into the shade. He wants to be feeding in the shade. Obviously, the heat, it's quite cool today. But laying in the sun and while you're feeding, you're gonna experience a little uncomfort. And being in the shade, it is definitely a lot nicer feeding on your lunch. But how amazing to see this story unfolded from this morning. How incredible. Question asked there by Phelan, how long would they have to hunt again after this carcass? Average 3 to 4 days. That could go a little bit longer. They could reach the 3-4 day mark and they could be unsuccessful. But on average, every 3-4 days, these boys would need to take down a carcass. This morning I mentioned that their daily intake would be at about 2-3 kilograms. So on the 4th day, they would really start pushing out and really starting to find a potential prey item that they could then utilize for their next meal. And it also depends on the size. A carcass like this would last them a bit longer. They are dominant individuals and they would stay a little bit longer here than cheetah otherwise. They would feed. Normally, cheetah would feed, get their fill, and they are out of there because of the high risk of other individuals coming into this area. Lions, hyenas. There's just so many things that can just drive them off carcass. I've seen cheetah being driven off by vultures. I've seen cheetah being driven off by a mother warthog from its piglet. So they really don't take chances, and everything is not written in stone. So when we talk about all these amazing things, there's definitely variables along the lines.
Good afternoon and welcome to And Beyond Ngala, where we've decided to head down to the waterhole. And we have found what looks like a juvenile tawny eagle. Now, it can be quite difficult sometimes to identify these juvenile birds, especially the raptors. And we'll have a quick look at it just now. My name is Marna, and with me behind the camera is Gert. So earlier I was looking at it with the binoculars, and we were looking at the gape, or the base of the bill. Now, if we zoom in a little bit more, or if we zoom in again, you'll notice that, I don't know if we can get that far in, but if you look at that gape, the tawny eagle's gape will go to the center of the eye, and then the other one that this bird is commonly mistaken for is a steppe eagle, and their gape will extend past the eye. Sometimes people will mistake them for Wahlberg's eagles, but the Wahlberg's eagle is slightly smaller, and they also have a little crest on their head. So I believe this is a tawny eagle. But like I said, it's still a young bird. You can see that he's still changing color. Now, with tawny eagles, you get different morphs. So you get darker versions and you get lighter versions. And I believe this one's probably going to turn into a pale morph if you look at the feathers in the bottom there. And then also on the wing, you can see that those feathers are getting lighter. We've been watching him scooping up the water every now and again. As mentioned, it is a really hot day. It is about 41 degrees Celsius today, or 105 degrees Fahrenheit. The hottest day we've had this month so far. So we're hoping that a lot of animals will come down to the waterhole this afternoon. We'll do a little stakeout. Andreas, I have seen them hunt in the heat. A lot of the times in the middle of the day, you might see them sitting on a dead tree high up in the branches, and they'll hunt. They hunt just about anything. They'll hunt insects, they'll hunt small lizards, reptiles. They'll even hunt frogs and fish if they can. They're very opportunistic. They even scavenge, And then I've read that they also hunt antelopes, like small antelopes, which I've never seen, but apparently they're capable of that. So yes, they will hunt when it's hot. But these tawny eagles, I've mentioned this before, but they're really, really sharp. So a lot of the times when we're looking for predators, if you see a tawny eagle coming down, or battalier eagles, then there might be something. They scavenge as well, so if there's a carcass somewhere in the ground, the tawny eagles will pick up on that. That's a very good indication that there's a carcass. But what a beautiful bird. And I must say, I actually like this morphle when they're young and they're still changing into their adult plumage. It's so beautiful.
Here we are also at a waterhole. We made it down to Treehouse Dam to find not only one but two hippos in the dam. The other one is still submerged, as you would be in this kind of heat. And what was most exciting when we approached it is that there was a gymnogene having a drink. That's in a nearby tree, but it's silhouetted. We'll have a look at it in a bit. I'm hoping it'll come down to have a drink again. I haven't seen a gymnogene drinking in a dam before, so that was quite cool. Much like how these hippos want to feel. You can see a little bit of that nose popping up for a breath there. And now we can have a look at the gymnogene, or African harrier hawk. There it is. It was so lovely to see it at the waterhole drinking. Waterholes are the place to be, as I'm sure you might have gathered, the fact that most of us are at them or going to them at the moment. Look at those feathers. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear because it's very difficult, but there's actually some squirrels alarming. And they would do it at seeing a gymnogene. What a gorgeous, gorgeous bird. It's certainly windy, so you might not be able to hear those squirrels. The water here is not very deep. And the last few times that I've come to Treehouse Dam, we haven't had hippos in it. Hopefully if we don't look at our gymnogene, maybe it'll come down to drink. So these guys are actually sitting, because when I saw it standing up, most of its body was out of the water. But of course they want to keep most of it submerged. So they'll be trying to get as low as possible. They have very sensitive skin that can crack and peel. It can actually bleed sometimes, which doesn't look healthy or good at all, as you would imagine. But they also have special secretions in their skin that can often look like blood, but is not blood. Those secretions, they push out when it's really, really hot and part of their body is exposed or they can't actually get to water. And that acts to moisten the skin, and as a sunscreen, it's hyposudoric and norhyposudoric acid. You might also see youngsters in periods of drought. They'll have their mothers drool over them so that they can stay nice and cool. Look at this creature. All the ruffling of the feathers from the wind need to be neatened up Clearly, that's what this gymnogene's going to be doing for the next few minutes.
All right, little gymnogene taking the full brunt of the wind, and the wind keeping things cool here for these two boys. One getting tucked in, one brother just keeping a watchful eye out for anybody or anything. And quite remarkable what this all played out for us today, and we could be part of it. So males like this in coalitions, they would obviously be in a stronger position to bring down larger prey. So at one given time, they would eat more meat than a solitary cheetah, for example. So a female, she would almost need to hunt every day. So the mom and three that we've been visiting, for those little cubs, every day or every second day, she would need to go out and hunt for those little ones. Solitary animals, every 2 to 3 days, so would these guys. Give or take what's happening within the environment, weather conditions, animal movements, you name it. And a daily intake between 1 and about 4 kilograms they need to keep those big bodies fueled. Look at the chest moving on that animal. Wow, could they finish that animal in 1 day? Wow, that is a lot of meat. That's a very big carcass. And the size of their tummies, the capacity would not allow them to finish all that meat. So they would remain here for a little while. They would get their fill. They would go and lay down in the shade, a nice comfy spot, especially for their tummies. There's a lot of pressure on the diaphragm, so you can see they're taking very short, very quick, shallow breaths. And then after a little bit of digestion, they would come back and feed again. Typically, a cheetah would feed and move off, but the area that we're in right now, there's not too much pressure of larger carnivores. So typically they would feed and then move off to avoid any conflict. But these guys, they've got the luxury of taking their time. So they can't finish that carcass at one go. It'll definitely be within a couple of sittings over a day or so, especially for these two boys. And they're getting into the rump there, the hindquarters of the animal where there's a full meat load. Cheetah have also been known to take heart and liver. They won't go for the intestines, but meat is what they want to go for. The protein, solid protein. You can see there's a lot of flies coming in. So flies also play a very important role in the ecosystem to break down organic matter or decomposing matter. It's also where some flies will actually breed. So if you think about a fly, and sometimes you see it as a pest, but within a system it is a very, very important component to be played in. Look how quick he's breathing. Very, very quick. Because that tummy's so full, there's a lot of pressure on the diaphragm, and so he's got to take very short, quick breaths. But you can see other brothers feeding now, and the other chap has found a nice shady spot. He's just taking it easy. And look how the cat is feeding. Look how this one brother's feeding. No paws on the carcass.
Good afternoon and welcome to Biffle's Hook Waterhole on this Saturday afternoon, where we're looking at a baby Blacksmith Lapwing. And if you listen carefully, you can hear its concerned parents tinkling away at it. Not sure what they're saying to it. Sorry, excuse me. My name is James Henry. Hello. On camera today is BK the Biceps. There is his thumb. His biceps don't fit on the camera. They're too large. Let us go back to the plethora of birds we have here. We have got 2 cattle egrets as well. There they are, resplendent in breeding plumage. We have a number of grey herons, which is quite unusual. If you go towards the right-hand side there, you'll see some grey herons, 1 adult two youngsters, two juveniles. And why this is interesting, and I read this today actually, is that the grey heron, being an Afro-Eurasian species, has just been found in the United States. And I think that's rather interesting, on the East Coast. I think on Nantucket first, and then, if I'm not mistaken, they've made it to Maine. One or two individuals, and really would be quite interesting to see if more than one gets there and a population of these birds becomes, I suppose, established in the United States, and then, well, who knows from there where they could go. Be fascinating to follow. I was reading this National Geographic article and I saw a grey heron there, and I hardly thought anything of it. I nearly skipped straight over it because, you know, the grey heron for us is not exactly an exotic bird. And then it said that the animal was in this United States. And I thought, that's odd, I didn't know they had them there. And so it was that I found out that they didn't hitherto. Now, what we're going to do is just sneak very slowly forward, simply because Kalamba was found at this waterhole this morning at about 11:45. So 1/4 of an hour before midday. And she was found in that inlet over there. And so what we are going to do is train the camera and our binoculars on that inlet and see if we don't come up with something. So far, one more grey heron, a gale force wind, and not much else. Now, what is quite interesting is that the wind has changed direction. So it was like being in a blast furnace earlier today, and now it's changed from northwest to southeast, and it's quite cool. So I think there's a front moving in, which will probably be here by tomorrow. We'll look for Kalamba and see if we don't get lucky.
Wow, so definitely getting his full, making sure he's getting all the nutrients he needs. When it comes to animals being out here, ladies and gents, it is vital. When you have an opportunity to feed, you take it. You take every last morsel that you could possibly take. Because if something had to come in here and these guys had to make a beeline, unfortunately whatever they've gotten is what's going to have to drive them and sustain them for the next couple of days. So like I said, they'll take turns feeding on the carcass, lazing about, slowly digesting, keeping a watchful eye and ear. Obviously their senses are still tuned into this environment, but then enjoying what we all enjoy, which is eating. Well, I enjoy it. I hope everyone else does. But the teeth being very small and quite fragile, they would have started around the flank or the belly, where they would have broken the skin and this animal would have worked its way in to that hind quarter. They'll use the hind quarter first, they might go into the shoulders, and then a bit later, in the mix of things, they could go for the heart and the liver. Intestines will be discarded, the bones will be discarded, and so will the skin. That is left for other animals within the system that basically play the role of cleanup and ensure that the system is clean, healthy, and functioning. Hyena would come in a bit later, maybe tonight or tomorrow morning, early hours. The scent would definitely be the attractive note for that animal to come in, and that animal would have the jaws powerful enough to break the bones, to digest the skin, to digest the hair. That won't even be digested. Hair is a very, very hard substance to break down and digest. It'll actually just be passed through the animal's digestive tract. And if you take a look at hyena, it has stomach acid more corrosive than that of acid. And they are definitely the role players here of cleaning up these carcasses once these predators are done. Oh, lazy weekend. What a beautiful scene. Cynthia, what happens to the horns once they are finished eating? Cynthia, those horns will be discarded. There will be other animals that would utilize the meat left on the skull. Different parts of it. You would have insects, certain insects even getting into the skull and eating the meat and the material still left there. But the horns themselves could remain out here for a long time. You do have some insects utilizing the horns through parts of South Africa, but you can find a set of horns, for a long period found within the bush. They will just be left there. And it's really amazing to see a set of horns and the skull structure and how the horn is developed from the skull structure, and you have this keratin sheath that grows around the very fragile and very sensitive bone. So those horns are actual extensions, and around that extension of the bone you'll have this sheath, this protective layer that protects the bone while the animal's still alive. And once the horns and the skull has been laying there for quite a while, on this oryx, after a couple of years, we can actually remove
Sorry about that, guys, but we are at Twin Dams, and we found the Nkahuma Pride from this morning. Now, these two are looking out very picturesquely out to Twin Dams, where there are two impala that were drinking. Oh, they still are, but they might be a little bit out of view. I thought that was very ambitious considering how tired they all look. I think they were well fed as well. James had them this morning. They haven't moved far except to a nice little patch of shade. I didn't want to get too close just in case they were actually interested in those impala, so we can swing around and have a look at the rest in a bit. But I do know that the rest of the pride is just, I saw a little cub pick up its head just behind those guari bushes. You can see some resemblance of animal behind there. I promise you, it's a lion. Well, we're going to have a quick visit with them, and then we'll come back later. Because in this heat, it's going to be a lot of sitting around. And that goes for all animals, really. Although that's a great patch of shade these two have found. They're still giving those impala a look, but the impala have started to move off already. You know, when I drove through here, I was just thinking about going to the waterholes, and didn't completely forgot that the lions were found here this morning. It's always a nice surprise to see them when you don't expect to see them, even if it's because of your own memory. Oh, there the impalas just come out now. I think it might have got whiff of the lions. Not doing anything yet. It's so windy that the impala would not be able to pinpoint what direction the scent is coming from, if it can detect any, really. There it is. just chilling. So all I see are two here, but sugar bits. You would like to know if the sand is cooler than the grass. Is that why the lions are on the road? I don't know. I don't think so. But the reason the lion is on the road, or these two are on the road, is because that patch of shade would have been there for a little bit, so that bit of ground will be cool. If that bit of ground was covered in grass, it would still also be cool because it would have been sheltered from the sun. So the most important factor there is not the substrate that they're on, but rather how long it's been baking in the sun. Oh, there was a little bit of a from them. I'm going to try and swing around and have a look at the other guys. Maybe we'll be able to get a cub count and a lioness count.
Hello, my name is Kevin, and I used to be a kudu. Unfortunately, I met the Nkahuma Pride 2 nights ago, and as you can see, they devoured me. All that's left of me is my magnificent rack of horns, but the rest has been scattered to the wind, or more accurately, to the ground through the bowels of the Nkahuma Pride. Aren't I a sad and forlorn-looking fellow?
This is the kudu that the Nkahuma Pride ate not last night. I said that I thought they'd eaten something the size of a kudu last night, but this was a few nights before that, I think, because they wouldn't have been at Twin Dams having a drink there if they could have been drinking here. And they were around about here yesterday. But what is amazing about this is, first of all, there's nothing left other than what you can see here. So all of the bones have been devoured or dragged off by the lions. I don't think any hyenas came through here because I think they would have made short work of what remains of the spinal column. But the most incredible thing about it is the size of this rack of horns. It really is quite impressive. This kudu must have been, they do about one full twist every 2 years. So this kudu, if we count from there, 1, 2, 3 and a bit full twists, about 7 years. You wouldn't really expect them to live longer than 7 years. That's about their lifespan. Females up to 14 years. But 7 years for a big bull. So this was definitely a big bull, probably just slightly past his prime. Really impressive. And what amazes me, because I can't understand it, is that the hunters who will go after something like this and shoot it, which I really just don't understand, they derive the wealth or the value of a kudu by the width that its horns spread like this. So they'd measure it in inches, and that's how they would define and value this kudu as a trophy. The Nkahuma Pride valued it by the tenderness of its loins, its fillets, its sirloins, its rump, and all the other nice cuts that they devoured a few nights ago. So there it is. Kevin the kudu, no longer. Goodbye, Kevin. May you have a lovely day, wherever you happen to be in the ether. Someone's going to get a big fright when they drive past that thing. Jenna, I think that those horns, when I picked them up, that whole thing probably weighed in the region of 15 kilograms. 15 kilos. So the horns probably not very heavy. 10 kilos maybe? 5 kilos each. still quite heavy if you think about carrying that on the top of your head. Right, we've had no luck with Tlalamba, but we'll keep on looking.
So we've received our first visitors at the waterhole. A nice herd of impalas came in for a drink. And just before the impalas came in, we had a little slender mongoose also drinking, but he scurried off quite quickly. At least the impalas are sticking around. They are quite cautious, and that's usually what you'll see when you see impalas coming down to the water's edge. They don't know what's lurking in the water, so they have to be very cautious when they approach. And also, you can probably hear that the wind has picked up quite a bit. So in general, herbivores tend to be quite skittish when the wind is blowing. There's a lot of sounds, movement of the branches and the grass. It makes them very skittish because they struggle to hear what's going on around them. But these impalas are actually looking really good for the time of year. They've all got nice big bellies, they're well rounded, they're in a really good condition. And they really are beautiful antelopes. I love those 3 black lines on the bums. And then the vertical stripes as well on the sides. They are really beautiful. So delicate as well, if you look at the face. The one that's drinking below here, she's got an oxpecker on her head. Oh, look at that. I think he's aiming for the ear. Yeah. Trying to get it off. There's another one on the ground. Look how muddy her hooves are and the ankles. If you look at the front legs. Now this can be quite a dangerous place for them to come and drink, especially once this water starts drying up. There's a good chance that the impalas might get stuck in this water hole. And we've seen it quite a few times before where the impalas or the antelopes get stuck, and then the hyenas or other predators will come and fish them out of the water hole or mud hole. It seems like they're moving off now. You can see the 2 of them just browsing for some leaves there. We're going to sit here for a little while longer, and fingers crossed that we get some elephants coming down for a drink.
Well into main course here. These boys are getting stuck in, and we were just marveling at how 2 mature males, predators, let me add that, sit at a carcass and have great table manners with each other. Unlike lions that have to really fight their way in to a carcass to get a potential meal, these boys could sit calmly right next to each other feeding off the same carcass. It's quite remarkable, and that shows you how strong this bond really is. Well, look at the power in that animal. So the right hand rear rump is done, and as well as the right hand front shoulder is almost completely done. So it shows that they were very, very hungry this morning, and that hunger would have driven them to a point where they would have taken down this big animal.
Sorry about that, guys, but we're back here with the lions, which will get Tswalu back in no time. I've managed to move over and see the rest of the pride. There's a cuddle kerfuffle going on there. So I think the two lionesses that we saw in front, after having a nice good look at them, seem to be Ridge-Nose and the oldest lioness that has now passed away. The oldest lioness's daughter. The one that was the sister to the Nkahuma male. So that looks like those two that were sitting up in front, scouting out the dam. And over here, we just have one big lion puddle. So there's at least 6 lionesses here at the moment. And that's just judging from body size, because I don't see, or I hardly see any faces. Doodle, you'd like to know if the wind helps or hinders hunting for prey. The wind is interesting because it can do both. Just gonna, like that, very, very windy now. So it can do both in the sense that all the animals out here, if the prey can't hear properly, then the predators can't hear as well either. It's not as if the predator's hearing is so much better than prey species. It's always an evolutionary arms race. One's ability, whatever ability it is, gets better, and then the prey also gets better, and the predators get better, and it just keeps on going. We call that an evolutionary arms race. But the advantages for the lions or for predators is that they can sneak up on their prey species, so they can rely more on other senses. Look at this girl. And by relying on more on their other senses, that can help them a lot, and also they're focused on getting that prey species. Now for the prey species, the advantage is that the smell of the predator is all over the place, but they will not be able to pick up direction because the wind will move the direction of, or move the smell around. But they will know immediately that something is up. So there's lots of pros and cons. Prey species are also a little bit more skittish. They're the ones that are going to die. So they might be a little bit more excitable and less focused, whereas the predators will be absolutely focused on getting somewhere or something. Which means that they're not thinking about where'd the smell come from. Did you hear this? I didn't hear this. Where's the rest of the herd? Oh, everyone's getting up now. Moving over. I think the female that just lifted her head up and walked the other way might be Chelly. Unfortunately, I had my head looking the other way so that the wind wasn't coming into my mic. But that cub looks quite young, and that's suckling from her. But we're going to sit here and figure out who's who. Hopefully everyone will get up and show us their faces.
Here we have got a little herd of zebras. They are out in the open, quite possibly because it is windy, as you were discussing with Trishala. Very relaxed, probably quite relieved as we are that the wind has changed direction and is cooling them. The light is still very harsh at this time of the afternoon, at this time of the year, when there's so little colour in the actual bush. The colours seem to come out when the light softens. All the different shades of honey and copper and gold. But when the sun is this high up, it tends to look a bit blown out. This chap is possibly resting his head on that marula tree. Have not seen a lot of zebra around here over the last little while. And perhaps the grass that remains on Djuma is attractive to them. I also suspect that the firebreak's pretty attractive to them because it's got patches of nice green grass on it. Nice short green grass, which is what they favour. And those two, well, zebras often stand like that. Even horses stand like that with each other. And I suppose it must be some kind of defensive arrangement where you're able to look back and front at the same time.
Afternoon, we have Sandy south of Tswalu Dam on pump track.
And you can hear the wind howling through the trees. Aunt Christine, I don't know if the wind will bring in any unusual migrating birds, but I suspect that those grey herons, because to find 4 of them like that was unusual, have been blown in on this wind. And if a big storm comes, you do often find a squadron of raptors flying in front of it, of all kinds, all sizes and shapes. And I remember once a very big storm blew in over Ngala, and the next day there were eagles on just about every tree. Lesser spotted, tawnies, steppe eagles, Wahlberg's eagles, none of which are there most of the time, but they're not unusual in so much as they do occur there, just not in the diversity or in the numbers that they did on that particular day. So, yes, a change in weather can bring in some unusual birds, not necessarily birds that would be vagrant to the area, and I think it would take more than just this. I think there'd have to be a proper storm front. Then I think it would bring in some unusual things. But it's not impossible. It's always exciting to see new birds or unusual birds in an area where you don't expect to find them. I'm willing to bet that that particular zebra that we're looking at really couldn't give 2 hoots whether any unusual birds fly in here. Even were an Angola pitta to alight on the ground just next to it, I fear me he would give it no more mind than he would a humble Sabota lark. On we go, looking for Tlalamba.
So not much has changed on this side. We're currently just watching some red-billed oxpeckers on the edge of the water, just having a little drink. And then you can see, if you look at the water, you can see all the ripples on the water there. So the wind has picked up quite a bit on this side as well. There are some hippos in the waterhole, but we just see the nostrils every now and again. They're also taking cover right in the middle of the waterhole there. I think they're completely submerged now. It could take a while before they come back up. And they could stay under there for 6 minutes if they wanted to. There's one's head. There you go. Now these water holes are generally quite productive, especially this time of year, because there isn't a lot of water around. These larger bodies of water tend to attract a lot of animals. So if you had to sit here the whole day, I often wonder how many animals you would see. It would be hundreds. I think with this breeze, it is nice and cool where we're sitting at the moment as well, even though it's 41 degrees Celsius. I think that we should continue and see what else we can find. We'll leave the hippos to their water hole. Renee, how long can hippos hold their breath? So for about 6 minutes. So once you see them going, I've actually tried to time this, because that's what the books say. They say they'll stay underwater for around 6 minutes, but I've never actually seen them going under for that long. I've timed it before, and these ones, I'd say they're coming up at like minute intervals, but yes, around 6 minutes, Renee. I think earlier we counted about 5 hippos here, but it's quite difficult to say now, because you only see the heads popping up every now and again. Right, so we're going to continue and see what else we can find.
Look what we have here. Cape buffalo, eh? Few dagger boys. It's actually 4 of them. Like busy feeding. This is a perfect weather for them. We're not far from HQ water hole. So I assume they just had like a nice drink. And then after that, maybe they could be making their way towards either of the 2 other watering holes, which is in Ndlovu Dam or Leopard Dam. The weather as well is starting to change. I just had I felt some few raindrop. Look at that, eh? You can tell this is a very, very old buffalo bull, eh? They're also known as dagger boys for rolling in the mud and sticking at the back of the head. Normally, this is a normal scenario that you find, that few bulls will just lag at the back of the head, or they will go on their own, like forming a bachelor group, so consisting only of like male, and they'll just let the other head or the entire head to just continue with their normal thing, like where you get like calves, sabadalt, cows, etc., etc. What I'm also seeing is that the one far right is feeding just next to a termite mound, and that's a fungus growing termite mound. So obviously these guys, they play a very crucial role in our ecosystem by digesting plant material, which later on act as nutrients in our soil. And animals such buffaloes, or most of our herbivores, from like rhinos, elephant, everyone would you normally find around such termite mound with no much of grass, just because animals just likes or love nibbling on them. I wish this rain can come, so we see how Pride Land looks like, especially when it's green. Good question. Good question. I did not catch your name, but I'm not really sure how much they can eat a day. But I can go and, have a look, and I'll come back to you. But knowing their digestive system, they don't need to eat so much because they are what we call a ruminant. So meaning they'll spend less hours feeding, and later on they'll just find a nice tree or a shade or on a wallow in the mud, just sitting in the water. They'll just again rechew everything. So their food it's get rechewed through 4 different chambers of stomach. Comparing this with elephant has to, at least for an example, spend plus minus 18 to 20 hours just feeding, because only 45% of what they eat they can only digest. But with an animal like this, their digestive system is very efficient. So I'll assume less hours, but I'm not really sure in numbers how much they can eat a day. They're slowly starting to move in the thickest. We'll just leave them.
This chap, there's no stopping this one. He's like me at the dinner table. This one brother has not stopped since you guys left us. He's definitely getting his fill. And just like I mentioned, this would be the behavior for the next couple of hours. So we were thinking the next couple of minutes, maybe keeping this safari engine running on a high idle speed. We're going to go a little bit further down south, and with this cool weather that we're experiencing now, hopefully we can get lucky on some of the nocturnal animals coming out a bit earlier. Something like a Cape fox or maybe an aardvark, even. That would just be a cherry on top of the cake. Oh, a little bit of teeth showing there, a little bit of aggression, and then a little bit of vocalization given from the one brother that's currently busy feeding. He's obviously in a nice spot and doesn't want to be disturbed. So there was just a little vocalization and then a little bit of aggressive posture given from the facial features of that animal. Or he's just helping his brother out. Oh. So he definitely didn't want to move, and that's why he gave that aggressive. But this will plan out for the next couple hours. They will laze about, and these boys know that they are quite dominant in this area, so they'll more than only likely move off early hours this evening, maybe even tomorrow morning off this carcass. And once they move off, that's when all the other animals will start moving into what is left of here. Jackal, obviously with the wind direction, Jackal will pick this up from a good couple of kilometers. They've got a really, really keen sense of smell, and they'll be drawn in from this carcass, the smell that's released from the carcass. And then later on, brown hyena, So there was a question there, why are they going after those areas instead of the easy meat? It's just where they can break the skin. With the teeth, the dental structure that they possess, it's the easiest part where they can get into the nice meaty parts of the animal. So it'll be around the flanks or around the belly section where there's a piece of skin or a fold of skin where they can lacerate that, and then from there tear it open and then get really stuck into where all the juicy good stuff is for them. And then they're not able to to tear and rip thicker flesh found within this carcass. So the easier parts around the rump, the belly, even around the anus sometimes. I've seen right around the bum section, the hind of the rump, getting in there, tearing it open and getting stuck in. Using the carnassial shears there, the brother on the right, allowing that very specialized set of teeth to shear and cut through that flesh.
I guess the cooling temperature, it's a little bit cooler now, and the wind has prompted some movement. One lioness has gone down to drink. Looks like the impala have run away. All right, let's reposition so we can get a view of the dam. Looks like she went down to drink. All the impala ran very, very quickly. Yeah, she is going down to drink. So that means that hopefully the rest of the pride will follow. So I think I see 6 lionesses. Definitely saw amber eyes, definitely saw purple eye, ridge-nosed chile, and then the other 2 younger lionesses, I think was Purple Eye's daughter and the oldest Nkahuma lioness's daughter. There we go. Okay. 20 seconds and we'll be up at the dam and we get an excellent view. Instead of rushing it. Makes them feel safer to drink too. And then, oh, actually here is a stunning view. We'll be able to see them come through. Let's do it like this, otherwise I feel like I'll be too intrusive to the dam. How nice is this? You can see everybody coming through. This is awesome. That's just great. And just enjoy it. There's nothing I can tell you except that we're very lucky to see this. So we have 9 cubs and 6 lionesses here today. That was an awesome way to actually get to count them as they all came down. feel a little bit like an old lady, but this reminds me of a sighting I had with them when all these cubs were very, very tiny. I don't even think Chile or Purple Eye had cubs at that point. I think Purple Eye did. And they were all sitting around like this, drinking. And then one of the cubs pushed the other cub, or didn't push it, it just put them in an uncomfortable position where they half of their body slipped into the pan. It was hilarious and cute. That's how bonds are made, right? I had a wonderful comment about how special this sighting is. I'm just gonna grab that name again. Ladybird. Thank you. I think it's a spectacular moment that we get to share. This will be the biggest fright for any animals that want to come down and drink at Twin Dams. See a whole pride of lions waiting for you. Hey, Jacinta, you'd like to know how long lions can go without water? I don't know specifically, because they get a lot of their moisture content or the moisture requirement from the blood and the prey that they eat. But like with any mammal, once you go past a few days without water, you start to be very, very dehydrated. So of course they need water, and they will drink as often as the opportunity presents to drink, but they can also get that moisture requirement from the blood. Very seldom have I seen a lion pride and sat with them the whole day and them not go to drink. And if you've watched them at a carcass, you can also see how blood can make up a lot of that moisture requirement, because the internal cavity of an animal, the blood kind of pools there, and it is literally a pool of blood, and you will see them lapping it up too. Now it's time to relax. Day at the beach. That was just lovely. Thirst quenched. It's actually cooling really nicely. Perhaps it'll be an unlucky day for any herbivore that comes along to have a drink. But a good meal for our Inkahumas. Sorry about my game drive radio beeping like that. It's constantly going now, especially since it's been a long weekend in South Africa, or for most people. Heritage Day was on Thursday. So everybody, after all the lockdown, wants to get out and about.
So we've been joined by 4 beautiful buffalo bulls. And all 4 of them quite large. As mentioned, beautiful specimens. Little oxpeck is also riding their backs. Now these buffaloes, I'm sure you've seen this on the show before, but they normally they travel in large herds. But these older bulls, a lot of the times, if they pass or when they pass their reproductive peak and they can't compete for dominance anymore, then they get pushed out of the herd. And then you'll find them either by themselves or they form little bachelor herds. Now, these guys, especially the ones in front, they don't look like they're in poor condition. So sometimes what you'll find is that these bulls might break away from the larger herds and they'll form little bachelor herds just so it's safer and they're not by themselves. And then when the time comes, they'll rejoin the larger herds again. A lot of the times with the older animals, I'd like to draw your attention to, let's just see, this one in front here, Gert. There's one, if you look at on the side, closer to the back leg, you'll see that it's like cracked and hairless there. Now, because these animals are so dark, you can imagine they attract a lot of parasites. So a little bit down. Slightly up, yeah, so just next to the base of the leg there, you'll notice you can see it quite nicely on the third one there, actually. So he's looks slightly older. That one, there we go. So you can see that hairless patch there at the back. It's cracked and it's hairless. So like I'm saying, because they're so dark, they attract a lot of parasites. And the way they treat that is that they'll go and they'll roll around in the mud. And then afterwards they go and they rub up against a tree or something just to help dislodge those parasites. But then when they age, you'll find that these bulls will have these hairless, patchy spots on them just because of years of trying to get rid of these parasites and keeping themselves cool. Now have a look at this buffalo's horns, and how you can tell if it's a bull or a cow by looking at the horn is that the bull has quite a large boss. Now the boss is the part in the middle there. So you can see it almost looks like he's wearing a helmet, and the females don't have that. The females have quite a flat horn, and then also like a layer of skin that covers the middle of the head there. There you go, you can see it quite nicely there.
Here we are with 4 buffalo bulls at a waterhole. The waterhole in front of our camp, where there were apparently 200 or 300 buffalo before we got here. But we were a little slow on the uptake because we were looking for Tlalamba. We didn't find her, but here we have the stragglers. And they seem to be looking at another buffalo behind the bushes and not really knowing what to do about it. Now this is quite a nice time of the year for game viewing, as I've mentioned many times, because it is so dry and the water's all concentrated, and things like buffalo have got to come and drink probably twice a day because the food is so dry. And so their movements become a lot more predictable than they are at other times of the year. It's always fun to see buffalo having a drink, especially a nice big herd of them. The rest of the herd apparently is headed off towards the east. And I'm sure these old bullets will follow. That's the kind of group of bulls that will eventually become a group of Daga boys, as they call them. I just want to quickly correct something as these Daga boys head off. It's not D-A-G-G-A, because that's not a word. Well, it is. Daga is a word, which is a word for marijuana. And these are not marijuana boys. Well, some of them might be, but that's not why they're called that. The word Daga comes from the Zulu word umdaga, which means mud. And so, strictly speaking, if you're writing the word Daga boys, it should be D-A-K-A. If you were vaguely interested, you might not be. You might wish that I just shut up. Let me go backwards a little bit. You might say to yourself, you know, I didn't come here for a lesson in Zulu spelling. Oof, that is pretty rancid. A cat has definitely relieved itself here at some stage. Maybe Tlalamba is close by. Anyway, there they are, emerging from the bushes. The Umdaga boys. I don't think we'll follow up with them. I think we'll probably head off and see what else we can find.
Most of these lions have moved back to the spot that we first saw them in. And they've finished their drink. That was such a lovely sighting. So peaceful. You think that these animals can tear apart an antelope in no time, bring it down to feed themselves, yet they can be so peaceful and loving. Three stragglers left. Will you get up to move? Lawrence, you'd like to know if crocodiles eat lions? Crocodiles are certainly an apex predator. And they have been recorded to take a lion before. But it is not as if they go in search of a lion, that they prey on lions. Lions come to the water's edge, especially if they're sick or injured and they may not react as quickly. And then a crocodile could certainly kill one. In that scenario of a lion at the water's edge and a crocodile coming over, the crocodile is always going to win. There's very little chance that the lion is going to kill the crocodile in that situation. Crocodiles are formidable and not given as much credit, I think, when we think about predators and the kind of untouchables. When it comes to that, crocodiles are one of them. Look at these two. So difficult for me to tell the cubs apart. It's easy to recognize Ridge-Nose's two boys. Obviously because they're boys and they're big. But the younger boys, some of them are starting to get a little bit of a hairy neck. But it is difficult to tell them apart. Some Blacksmith Lapwings that have gotten their attention. You saw when they looked up there? You can hear the lapwings. Eee, look at that. There's so much love and just like companionship that exists between all of them. And it's not just that it exists, they display it to each other so much. Well, just turn over and have a look. Where's the rest of the pride gone? They're still there, don't worry, just all the way at the back. There we go. Well done, Niels. I didn't even see them on the screen like that. Through those branches. Really beautiful soft light now. It's actually very nice for my eyes because it doesn't feel like the whole day, where the whole day it felt like it was just white light all over the place. And now it's lovely and soft, and they've moved back to their usual place. So I think I'm gonna swing around too.
Wow, look at this young Elibo. We just had like, a really overwhelming experience with one of the cow entertaining us not so long ago. But look at this little champ here trying to work or to use his trunk, learning how to use it properly. So this is the same herd that we spent time with this morning. So you can see we're actually not very far from Leopard Dam. So you can see they've been slowly, very slowly moving away from Leopard Dam, heading in an easterly direction, just feeding. It's a very chilled day. See how he's using his trunk and leg there, like the two combination works quite well, especially when you this young. You don't have like task to sort of like push or even like get to the cambium layer of the tree unless an adult or a bull push down a tree. Oh, look at that. Maybe he's gonna, can see he's just going for like something that's very soft, that he can be able, until he master the art of using that small little trunk. Baby elephant actually have become one of my favorite animals. Always busy doing something all the time. If they're not playing, either they're trying to use their little cute trunk. Oh, look at that. It's trying to chew. So now you can see this elephant are using whatever opportunity that's available, special food-wise. We're in an area where there's like a nice, good patch of brown grass or the dry grass. So it's not that much bad. just using whatever opportunities these animals will have. Like I mentioned earlier on, that they have to be feeding and spending so many hours feeding just to meet their body mass. And by the way, Ruth, I just checked on that information on how many kilogram do buffalo can eat a day. So I just did some quick research, and it's between 25 to 30 kilogram a day a buffalo will feed. That's like special for like an adult, somewhere around there. So unlike these animals, they have to, one thing that, they have in an advantage is that Tracy, I agree with you. These are very special animals, very special animals. I'm not sure if you guys have actually noticed on the ear of an elephant. It actually looks like, the map of Africa. I'm not sure if you have paid attention. Look at that, African elephant. Ear looking almost like the map of Africa. It's really amazing. I'm watching these animals. Just gonna keep on spending some time seeing how they behave.
So we've come across quite a nice journey of giraffes, and it's quite interesting what's happening here. So on the right you've got still quite a young bull, and then on the left is a female, the one that's feeding there. So it seems like this bull is quite interested in this female. What you'll see him doing is every now and again he lowers his head to her rump, and that's what you usually see when he's testing to see if she's in estrus or if she's ready to mate with. We've been seeing him do that, we've seen him doing that twice now. Really nice to have a male and female next to each other. Now you can see the height difference. Males being much taller compared to the females, and they're feeding on quite an array of different things here. So there are some bush willows that he's feeding on, a bush willow, and they've just started sprouting some new leaves. Earlier she was feeding on what was left of an apple leaf. Little oxpecker sitting on his horn there. Yeah, but she's much shorter than him. Alright, moving over to another apple leaf there. Caitlin, how tall do giraffes get? So a male giraffe will be around 5.5 meters, sometimes up to 6 meters, and the females will be around 3.5 to 4 meters. Now, I was actually hoping that female would go and feed with him, just to show you something when they're feeding on the same tree. Now, that tree isn't that tall, but normally the males will reach up for the higher branches, and because they're higher or taller than the females, that actually eliminates competition between the two of them. He can reach up and pluck some of the leaves that are growing a little bit higher, and she'll feed just below that. Here's an impala with them as well. It's a good place for this impala to be, hanging out with the giraffes. Safety in numbers. can just see him at the bottom left of the screen, kind of at the base of that big tree. I think you were chatting about it earlier, but the predators do use this wind to their advantage. Earlier when we were around the waterhole, I was saying how this wind makes it really hard for the herbivores to actually hear what's going on around them because of the movement of all the grass and the branches and the leaves. So the predators know this. So now it's if they use the wind correctly, it's much easier for them to sneak up on these animals. So the herbivores have to be extra aware. She's bending down quite low, feeding on those new shoots there. Look how he's twisting his head around to get to those leaves. Oh no, he's just scratching his neck as well. Well, he hasn't gone back to pursuing her. Well, let's see. She hasn't shown any interest at all. Watch. Definitely interested. Now, I've actually watched a pair of them once where the male is doing exactly the same thing. And the female also not interested. And eventually he was chasing her around the bush. She was running away from him. And they were just running around the bush in circles. Like she was just trying to get away from this bull. It was quite funny. But he doesn't seem that persistent. He's more interested in the food. Anushka, good question. How do giraffes scratch their faces or their necks? So, yeah, they'll definitely go up to a tree and they'll scratch against a tree. There are lots of large trees around this area. So they'll just find a nice branch and that's where they'll scratch their face or their neck. He was actually doing it a little bit earlier. Whilst he was feeding, you could see he was kind of scratching the side of the neck there. And you find that with a lot of the larger animals, elephants as well, they'll scratch against large trees. Buffaloes will do the same thing. Rhinos. Well, any animal out here, you know, when there's a hard to reach spot, they'll just go rub up against a bush or a branch or a tree. And then often we find these rubbing posts out here. And a lot of them are very smooth. Like if you touch it, you'll see like it's been well used. See the little impala in the shot there now as well, front. Okay, I think we're going to continue and we'll send you off to one of our other guides.
It seems like this animals or this elephant has found their favorite spot in the property. You can see how everyone is scattered and just feeding on this grass here. You can see on the trees there's hardly leaves. We just came out of winter, spring, just waiting for our summer rain. Oh, look at that. Someone's feeling brave and strong. Oh, so you can see she's just moving all the twigs and stuff, like, you know, around so she can really access the grass area. And this actually also takes us back to why these animals, sometimes people see it as a distraction when an elephant pushes down a tree, feed on it, but they're actually creating a whole lot of new ecosystem for other small animals. And later on, some of the grass get protected, and that twig that this big cow just removed, the grass that is that was in that area was protected by some of the twigs in that area, and which I found very, very, very phenomenal. And it's a good teacher that when we men do not get involved or in the way of nature, nature have their own, way of recycling and, making sure that the chain keeps on going. Look at this mom here. Can see how she's pulling grass. You can see how she also break like small twigs of some grievous species. Look at that ear again. Looking at us now. And now just walking past us. Very cool animal, eh? Very cool animal. And my favorite animal. So you can see, since we have been with them, it's a matter of keep on feeding and feeding and feeding, because they have to do this for many, many hours so they can have sufficient food. This one is showing us her bag. She doesn't really want us to, also happen with animals. Oh, look at that little cutie one. Young boy. What is also amazing is how quiet seems like everyone is not in the mood of facing the camera, eh? Everyone is just showing us their back. You can see the cow just standing ahead of us. You can see she's also using her trunk just to get in between one of the tree that I think it's, if you look, I think it's possibly an elephant pushed that tree down to feed on. And now again, all the grass contact or that growth around in that area, and is just a good use now. That's a big boy. At the beginning I thought it was Kumu, but looking at few things, I don't see that big lump just underneath his tail, and also that scar that we normally identify him with between his tusks.
Look at what we have here. I know it's a pretty rubbish view, but I don't want to move because I think the bird will fly off. Now, would anybody like to hazard a guess at what bird we are looking at? Would you? Have a guess. A little raptor, a little accipiter, and what you're looking at is the colour of the legs and the cere, and I will tell you, because it's difficult to see in your picture there, that both are red, which in this area basically gives you two options for a bird that size. It's about just under a foot long. Has it gone? No, it's still there. And what you want to look at also is the colour of the eyes. What's legs red? Yes, they are. So you have a look there. See what you think. No, Sharon is not an eagle. It is an accipiter, a little hawk. One of two possible accipiters. I'm actually relatively undecided myself. Anybody else want to hazard a guess? We really need to see its front. Now, Consulting Detective reckons that this is a shikra. Consulting Detective is close, but I'm not going to give you a cigar for that one. And I'll tell you why. Its eye is too dark, and its legs are the wrong colour, I think. There, now it's moved. There we go, that's a better look. Yes. Okay, it is what I suspected it is. All right, I'm going to let you... I know all of you are about to fall off your seats in anticipation at what this bird could possibly be. It is, in fact, a lizard buzzard. BK, did you just say yes? Because that's what you thought it was? Yeah. Well done. Now, the only other thing, really, that it could be is a Gabar goshawk. But it's a little bit smaller, and it's got a very distinct black throat stripe. Joy, you said lizard buzzard. You, therefore, have won my undying admiration. I don't have my bird book with me, I'm afraid, so I can't show you. I have my bird app, but we don't use those anymore. So it is a lizard buzzard. Very good. It's quite a nice picture of its disguise. I mean, quite difficult to see. If you happen to be a little waxbill flying past on your way to tea with your friends, the waxbill flock from the next door acacia tree, it'd be quite difficult to see that danger lurking above. Although I suppose it's much more likely to leave the lizard, at least the waxbills, alone and go for lizards. So if you were a small bushveld lizard on your way to tea with your friends, the other bushveld lizards who lived close by in a grass tussock or in a dead log, well, tricky to see that thing lurking above you. That red cere and red legs, very distinctive. Only two birds here have that. And those are the Gabar goshawk and the lizard buzzard. Gremlins General, yes. Unsurprisingly, the lizard buzzard is a fan of lizards. It eats mainly lizards, small snakes, rodents, frogs and invertebrates. Like most of these things, it'll basically eat anything that it can catch. I'll give you a list of things that it's been seen eating. Lizards, small snakes, frogs, rodents, invertebrates, grasshoppers, occasionally arachnids and mollusks. Rarely it will eat small birds, including little sparrowhawk chick. One bird became enmeshed in coils of a snake it had attempted to catch. So largely reptiles, sometimes other small birds, but very seldom. Unlike the gabar goshawk, which will eat quite a few other small birds. We're sort of making our way back down towards, or round towards Buffelshoek Dam to see if Tlalumbra appears, and we'll do that now.
So we have found quite a nice herd of elephants. Looks like a breeding herd, so mostly females and their calves. You can just see the rear end of one there, and there's the youngster just in front of her. That's quite a large cow. She is gigantic, actually. Quite a few of them. They're moving into a dry riverbed just in front of us. You can see where these large trees are popping up. That's where that little riverbed is, and there's still a lot of food around there. There's a lot of long grass lining the banks of that little drainage line, and some green food around it. So that's what they're after. This is what you see elephants doing most of the time. They're just walking around feeding. They have to eat a lot of food. Oh, there's one crossing the road in front of us. Well, he or she was turning back for a snack behind it there. That looks like a young bull. Now, you'll often find young bulls accompanying the herd, but when they're about 12 or 13 years of age, when they reach puberty, then the females will kick them out. So then you find them following the herds, but every now and again, if you sit with the herd for a long time, and then you'll see that there's usually a bit of a misunderstanding, and they'll trumpet and scream and shout, and the females will keep pushing and chasing them. It's been quite peaceful so far, but eventually they'll get the point and they'll go off by themselves or form little bachelor herds. Another elephant bum there. Bubblicious, how thick is an elephant's skin? So it depends where on the body you look. So if you look at the ears, and you can actually see it from what we're looking at now, you'll notice that the ears are very, very thin. But around the rest of the body, there's some parts that might be 3 to 4 centimeters thick, other parts that might be thinner. So I'd say under the tail's probably thinner, and then the ears. So yeah, it just depends where on the body you look. But majority of it might be around 3 to 4 centimeters thick, which is really, really thick. We were actually chatting about this the other day, and it's not something you often find, but on the odd occasion when we do find an elephant carcass, it's quite a difficult thing for for predators to actually to open, to start feeding. So they'll usually start with the under the tail, and then they'll try and open up the belly, but it'd have to be something like a lion or a hyena. So it looks like they're moving into the bush, so we'll continue on our way and see what else we can find.
We've moved away from the Nkahumas just to let other people have a go at having a good sighting with them. And we've come round here to the Mulwati, where something very special is going on, we think. This is one of the spotted eagle owls, possibly Segwig. Well, okay, it's Segwig's parents. And this is the female that is, or the only reason I can tell it's a female is because she's sitting on something. Now, James actually found her in the morning in the spot. And we looked and looked and looked, and she's so well camouflaged. We're hoping that she's sitting on an egg. Or 2, or 3, even up to 6. But generally 2 to 3 eggs. I don't know if you remember, it was yesterday afternoon. We had the spotted eagle owl in the tree. And he's nearby as well. Now, some species of birds, both the male and the female will be involved in sitting on the egg, but we know with this species it's just the female, so that's how we can tell. Isn't it just precious? I think it is something so special is happening there. Could mean that in a month or so we could have a little Segwig again. Now they'll start incubating as soon as the first egg is laid. You don't lay them all at the same time. There's a few days between egg laying. But as soon as the first one is laid, she'll start incubating. She looks like a proud mama. Just me and my future baby chilling. Just lovely. Look at how well camouflaged she is. Cucumber soup. You'd like to know why the nest is on the ground. It sounds strange, but they do nest on the ground just over half the time. Sometimes they'll nest in trees, but most of the time they do nest on the ground. Why that is? It's just an adaptation. It's a niche that they've managed to find. Their eggs are round and white, so they can be conspicuous. But even last year they were nesting on the ground. Generally, ground nesting birds have eggs that are very well camouflaged. That's why I mentioned that they are round and white and conspicuous. But the majority of the time she's on them. And obviously it has been a successful strategy for them, so it has persisted. Maybe it means that they don't have to compete for nesting sites in trees. But it's their strategy. Doesn't she look so peaceful? Warm, fuzzy, and peaceful. Well, it's getting quite cool now. I dare say it might even get a little bit chilly. I'm going to move on from this lovely lady, see what other things we can find.
It might not look like much, but we have found possibly something quite amazing. If you take a look on the right-hand side where this branch is in screen, there's soil that you can see in the middle of your view now. You can see that that soil has been disturbed quite a lot. And this is the activity of a little Cape fox, which has been moving in and out of its den. We saw this animal about 2 days ago, and I spoke to Glenn and Dave, and I said, let's just come here and take a look. And upon arriving, it stuck its little head out, and it was gone. It's moved just into the thickets behind. You can see the brush now coming into view is quite thick. I think just the visual aspect of us being on the vehicle, and it's so used to seeing a closed vehicle, it got a little...
So we are still sitting with this herd of elephants. The herd was actually much larger than we thought. And yeah, we've got a bit of a roadblock here. And they're feeding and feeling all along the side of the road here. Now, this female that we've got on screen, she was actually lifting that branch that's laying in front of her. She was lifting that whole thing up. Oh, she's moving it again. Watch, watch, watch. Now she has the strength to pick up that big branch. It's actually a small tree, which other animals don't have. So what they'll do, there we go, she's pushing it over, and then she'll feed on the nice grass that's still growing underneath it. You can imagine all the best grass has already been eaten by all the herbivores that come through here. But the elephants have the strength advantage. So these big fallen over trees, if there's some nice grass growing under it, they can move them. But yeah, this area has taken a bit of a beating. A lot of the trees here have been pushed over by the elephants. But luckily most of it's bush willow. And a lot of the times when they push the trees over, the half of the roots will still be in the soil, and that tree will actually still keep growing. Now they're crossing. And what you often find is these vertical branches that shoot out, and then you get these funny looking trees all around. I'm going to see if we can show you the one that's right next to us. Let's quickly see. There we go. Thank you, Gert. Look at that. So that tree was pushed over a while ago, and then you can see the new shoots or the new branches all going up, all straight up. It's quite a peculiar looking tree. Elephants were just doing some landscaping here. We'll see if we can pass this herd, if they allow us, and then we'll continue on our journey.
So hopefully we've located an active Cape fox den, and this is the site at which we'll be visiting over the next couple of days. Hopefully we can build a nice relationship and this animal becomes a little bit more relaxed with us. We are on a road that is used quite frequently by Tswalu staff members. So by coming to the site and maybe befriending this little animal, hopefully it can give us some amazing sightings. And it's a very special animal to see. A little bit shy, a little bit elusive, and Tswalu is a really great place to see these incredible little creatures. So be coming here and just be sitting here nice and quietly, and hopefully we can get a sight. While we're here, we'll also do some birding. We can always do birding. And like I just mentioned, we're in the period of which these little animals will actually be denning, which is quite nice. So knowing that the animal will be locked to this den, which would be really nice if we could see pups. That would be a first for me. Pups are always special. We always want to see little babies and to know that the ecosystem is thriving. Typical rodent hunters, and when this little one was pregnant, she would have been pregnant for about 50 days. And if she's given birth, and this is a den site, she would have given birth to anywhere up to 6 little pups. And look how thick and tangled the vegetation is. Typically where you would want to stash your little ones, just like that mom cheetah out west. Provides really great protection for when mom needs to go off. But these guys have a little bit more of a safety aspect, utilizing this underground burrow or den system. Very, very nice for protection against predators, but then as well as the harsh elements that we do experience here. Really nice. So hopefully we can get a little sight of the sky, and you can see something magnificent.
Here we have got a giraffe, and in fact we have got this giraffe and some zebra behind it and some impala next to them, and there was also a water pig here with enormous tusks, but unfortunately he ran a war. Now, word on the blower is that Thandi is visible for us. Unfortunately, there are 587 vehicles standing by to have a look at her, but we are going to try and make our way down towards where she is. We might be lucky, which will be great. Thandi, for those of you who don't know, a leopardess. Cool. Nearly 14 years old. She'll be 14 in December. That appears to be a picture of the sky, BK. What are you looking at? The moon. Oh, well done. No, that's just the sky. Okay, right, there's the moon. There we are. You had it. Well done. What was it? The moon. You were going for the moon. I just thought maybe that you had seen a bat or something. Yeah, it's too much. BK spotted the moon, everyone. See the wind rustling the mane of the giraffe. It's swung more from the east now, not so much southeast. Strange. Sesho, yes, indeed. Lions eat giraffe quite frequently. Hyenas would eat giraffe. Leopard have been known to attack giraffe, but lions mainly would be the threat, the major threat to giraffe. Once they get to this size, really only lions can take them out, or a massive clan of particularly angry hyenas.
Yeah, they're starting to go sort of uncertainly.
He is looking shocked at the sight of BK's biceps. He's envious. You can see he's had some work done beneath his eyes there. Not by a very poor practitioner of Botox, but by the oxpeckers. And they'll constantly worry giraffe around that region, and buffalo. And so you'll see these white patches under their eyes. His horns are not particularly straight. They're a bit squonk. And I think that's because, you know, they're born with their horns, and they don't necessarily, when they're born with horns and they're flat, and then they stand up in the first few days, but they don't necessarily form into two grooves. So they just kind of fuse to the skull wherever they are. So not unusual to find a giraffe with slightly squonk horns, as opposed to the magnificent horns on that kudu called Kevin, who we saw earlier today. is now looking wistfully off towards the west, hoping that the sun will peep down below the clouds and afford him a magnificent view of its sinking.
Just approaching you now. Copy that. I'm going to make space. I don't know if James wants to come down the hill.
All right, we've got some time, at least some space, so I think we're going to try and head towards Tundi now. I'm going to make my way, thanks Chris, northern side of Cheetah Katlano.
So the elephants have stolen our route, so they've all decided to use the road that we wanted to take. Not that I'm complaining. It's quite nice seeing them all walk along the road. Not that they need to use the road. I mean, it's much easier. They don't need to crash through any bushes. It's quite a large female on the left there. I love how, notice the ears, and look at how the ears just fold back. If you look at the top, so beautiful how it just curls over. She's also got a little hole in, or like a notch almost, in that left ear. A lot of the times you'll see these elephants with nicks and cuts and holes in the ears. Just because of the vegetation they move through, sometimes it'll get stuck on a thorny branch or something and tear. You can actually see how that head is bobbing as she's walking. Those heads are incredibly heavy. Most of the weight's on the front legs. All right, let's follow them. I think they're far enough away.
Look, a ground hornbill. Isn't that just lovely? They always look so strict, like a principal walking with their hands behind their backs. Gorgeous animals. And now, oh, we can wait, but I think it is gone into the bush. It was quite nice. It was actually picking through the elephant dung. Now, they're carnivorous, so they'll be looking for little things that they can find in it that are possible, like worms and things like that, but they will definitely like a reptile or two. Oh, it's gone. Just trying to look through just through this gap. It's about to come out, I think. Yeah, it's about to come out in that gap. Come on, come on. Give us one look at you. There you are. There we go. Almost. No. There we go. One last look at our ground hornbill. It's even giving you a wave. Okay, well, it is gone, as I've said, so I'm going to go and check out the Hyena Den, which is actually not far from here at all.
All right, Another beautiful little bird. White throat, white belly, and that uniform grey across the back. Nice, short, straight-ish beak. Miraco Flycatcher. Very beautiful bird and very easy to recognize with that striking white and then brown on the back. For sitting just in front of this beautiful Camelthorn. I mean, what an important species this is, not just in Tswalu, but through the whole central part of southern Africa. Referred to as keystone species just for what they provide, from shelter to nourishment, enriching the soil. And look how beautiful those mountains are starting to look. We're starting to come onto that late afternoon light where all these beautiful lines are really starting to just bust out. The mountains through the midday period look very uniform, very bland, but now they're really starting to take shape. We are still waiting patiently here by this little den site. We haven't had any activity yet, but fingers crossed, and obviously just patience. We're going to have a little bit of patience for this guy to get comfortable with us, and hopefully we can have a little view. But in the meantime, it's wonderful. The sun is to our back, setting in the west, and it is just a spectacular afternoon. It feels like winter's sprung back into action. I love the cool afternoons like this because these cool afternoons definitely present an opportunity for all these elusive little nocturnal creatures that aren't seen typically through the day to come out, because it's a catch-22. If it's cold and you come out under the cover of darkness, you're going to be expending a lot of energy to try and keep warm, and that's just not going to work out here. So by adapting and shifting your behavior to suit you best is very clever from an animal, and something that works really well here, especially through the winter, because it gets so frigid. How beautiful. Beautiful little three-thorn in view here, and those mountains just looking so delicious. Hence the name three-thorn. Look how that branch branches out into three distinctive little branches. Hence the name three-thorn. Very prominent shrub, small bush that we have over here, typically found going out west, especially in between the dune streets, and that creates a habitat for animals to seek refuge, shelter, food, you name it. A very, very, very amazing little bush here, and something that's easy to recognize. Sometimes trees, botany can become quite complex, and recognizing a tree is like, trying to learn algebra or, some very exciting and complicated math. But the easy ones are definitely exciting, and it makes it enjoyable to tap into the other larger, more complex tree species that we have. So that's back to the den now. So you can see the soil disturbance. There's a defined color difference between that is in picture at the moment and the soil that's before that darker strip running around the middle. And that's from the activity of this little animal moving in and out this den. Really amazing. And when you see this little animal, you are going to be in awe of its sheer beauty. Very elegant looking, very clean, beautiful little animal. Can we just get a shot here in the front here? I just want you guys to see the other part of these mountains. Let me just move my... Look at that. Beautiful.
I think we can compete, Kyle. Very different environments, but equally as beautiful. Tswalu is really, really, really magnificent. But Yuma being my home, bush home, it rivals Tswalu. Here we have the setting sun that brings with it quite a bit of chill. Considering he started off drive, 38 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm very surprised that it got so chilly so quickly, but we are expecting a cooler front to come through tomorrow. Now, I've come past the Hyena Den, and it's not active at this time, even though it's nice and cool, so that's a little bit surprising considering the heat of the day. So I'm going to head down to Treehouse Dam, not too far from here, see if anything has decided it's cooled down sufficiently so they can go and have a drink. And then I'm just going to mill about and see what gifts the bush has to us in the last half hour, 40 minutes of the show. Maybe a last-minute leopard. I remember. James is on that already. Maybe two. Anyway, I'm going to head down to the dam, see what we find.
Dis Marcus klink altyd vir my so op sy senuwees en angstig op die radio. Stations, may I please have a update?
Sorry about that, guys. Luckily, caught us still looking at the lovely sunset. That's because it's just so pretty. So pretty, especially with the silhouetted marula. Look at those colors. I would love to do a few silent moments watching the sunset, but it's still a little bit high up in the sky, and you might only be able to hear some wind, but we will do it. It's just a little bit lower. We'll sit and watch the sunset together. All right, how about we head down to the dam then? I had a really thorough look around the Hyena Den. Sometimes you see them sitting quite far away, especially the adults, almost not to entice the cubs to come out. And sometimes they even use, this is the old den, the one they used to use the first time. Sometimes they even use this one, and when I drove past yesterday morning when I drove past then, there were lots and lots of tracks all around. Lots and lots of tracks. If these people want to ask me about the Hyena Den, I'm going to have no good news for them, unfortunately. Hopefully they'll be able to go around me. Nothing. Yeah, good luck. See you. Shame. I wish I could have given them good news. And now they're heading in the direction of Treehouse Dam, which means that if they stumble upon something, they let us know. So it's no use both of us going down that way. Where shall we go? This is what I like about safari. Where shall we go and what do we find? We don't ever really know, except when sightings are called in, obviously. But I like when we just kind of drive around and stumble upon something. So, let's go.
You never really know being out in the bush what you're going to see, what you're going to hear, what you're going to smell. That's the beautiful thing about being out here. It's almost like you've got to tap into your own senses to tap into this wonderful free energy and exciting energy at that, and learning and understanding the complex arrangement of everything. Onto the tree here, please, Glenn. This little Camelthorn here. I think it's we've got a little sociable weaver. Yes, it is. Oh, look at that. these birds will start making their way back to those enormous structures for the night where they'll seek refuge. So every couple of minutes we have like flocks of like 20, 30 birds moving across us, going back to their nests. They finish the day's foraging and it's time to go to bed. So they'll make their way back to the nests. Before sunset, they are inside their little chambers. And that's where they will seek warmth and protection throughout tonight. Beautiful. Just in frame there, if everybody can see, directly in the middle of the frame, there's a white trunk being presented. That whitewashed bark is from a very beautiful tree called a shepherd's tree. A very important tree within this area and diagnostic. You can't forget it as you're driving around. It's the only tree with this whitewashed bark. Bark is obviously a very important part of a tree. Some of the bark of trees can be fire resistant and obviously enables and protects the tree through its life. But that bark is very easy to remember and recognize that of the shepherd's tree. And that's a very prominent tree within Tswalu, along with our Areoloba, which would be the Camelthorn, and a few other species. But tree-like species, definitely those guys. Found within the flats, found within the dunes. You can find them near and on the mountains. So quite an array or range of habitats that can fall within Tswalu. And Tswalu itself has 11 vegetative groups across the vast landscape. So as you're going from the north to south, you can go through this complex, changing and rolling phase of vegetation. It's spectacular to witness. And trees, they are just amazing. Trees are very complex organisms. People think, they just stand there and they produce oxygen and they just look nice. Trees are communicating with each other. They're growing, they're thriving, they're providing. Trees communicating with one another if they're being attacked, believe it or not. They can release a certain compound, a chemical, that can warn other trees that an attacker is coming and they should ramp up their defenses. So when it comes to nature, we are just scratching the surface of what is going on here. Obviously, a few defense mechanisms now in view, all those large thorns or spines, a very big deterrent for things like giraffe and kudu and other browsing species. It's one way on how this tree would deter. It's a mechanism to deter and push away predators. The thorns can also house ants, so then the ants look after the tree looks after the ants, and it's a big, happy, beautiful community. Helping each other out is what we need to learn from nature, and how we're going to fight all the issues that we're dealing with currently as a species, is joining and uniting and going forward as one. Without the tree, the ant wouldn't have a place to live, and without the ant, the tree would be constantly attacked by predators. So once something comes and browses on the tree, the ants will actually rush up and bite the browsing animal around the lips, and that'll be a way to deter these browsing individuals. Oh, there was a bit of movement there. There's a little bird there somewhere. Oh, it's quite thick, so beautiful yellow flowers from the Camelthorn, still in full bloom. It'll be for the next month or so that these flowers will be out in abundance, and that yellow being very attractive to that of insects. The color spectrum being very, very tasty to insects, especially bees. Color plays a very important role when it comes to attracting a vector to do something for you. So red is a very attractive note for birds to come and pollinate the flowers. Obviously there's a little bit of a prize to do that. The nectar would be the attractive note for a bird to come and do the business, but the color of the flower would be the representing factor to draw in that bird. Very beautiful. And it's still. It's almost like the calm before the storm. The wind has subsided, the sun is nice. It's beautiful out right now. And it's magical that we could be with you guys and share this amazing experience. Is there anything on our little Cape Fox den? This is typically when they would come out to do a little bit of sunbathing, warm up before the night sets in. And very important that you do that, because if you warm up by using solar radiation, that means you don't have to utilize your reserves to generate heat to warm up. So very clever from these little animals. Wow, you can just get lost in that. Very nice. Also, if we go right up into the sky, we're going to send you guys right up now. 1, 2, 3, here we go. Yes! And look at that. Amazing that we can sit here during the daytime and see this marvelous chunk of rock.
I promised you that we would be able to watch the sunset together. But, actually, let me show you. The sun has escaped behind the clouds. Didn't want us to share the moment. So it's escaped now. Behind these clouds off to my right. You'll actually be able to just see the color. So they have beautiful silver lining, or pinky silver lining, but the sun has slipped away. But that's okay, because a gap has opened up at the Nkuhumas again, so we can spend a few more minutes at the end of show with them, hopefully. So I'm gonna make my way slowly in that direction, because someone needs to move out for me to get in. But I'm not pushing them out. I promise.
Where have you found it?
So I'm glad that they've actually stuck around on Djuma for the whole day, considering that they are literally on the boundary. Well, actually not literally. 100 meters from the boundary. Other vehicles that can't come into Djuma have been sitting on the boundary and watching, hoping that they'll get a glance. Sometimes they did, actually. I know that feeling, like when Sibuyi walked straight into Little Gowrie. I know the feeling very well. Getting quite windy now. My cap has flown off my head a couple times today. Alright, I'll see you when I get to the Nkuhumas. Hopefully the gap will be ready for me.
So it really got exciting here at Pride Lands. So after seeing her earlier on at the dam, it seems like there was a small herd of impalas that were just east of the dam, that she was sort of like, waiting for them to come to water. But somehow, because of the wind, that did not really happen. So now we just saw her actually trying to hunt. She did some stalking, but unfortunately with this weather, she was not really lucky. But still, nice to watch and see her again, in action. This is also about the right time for her to start being active, and you can see she's also cleaning her paws just to be ready for action. I guess being a lone lioness also plays a crucial role, being hard for her hunting. I'll imagine, if you look at a normal lion behavior, living in a pride, hunting together, and now she's alone, she has to survive on her own. It's not gonna be that much easy. But I think looking how healthy she is, in good condition. That tells me that she's gonna be a good mom one day. She survived the worst, and really looking forward to see more of this female lioness. Oh, you see, she was just resting, and then now mobile again. So let's hope she will be successful. I really like, you know, how everything blends in with her. The camouflage is just on another level. It's really, really looking pretty. So I really hope that she you know, she make a kill or find something. Slowly moving to the thickest. You can see now what she's doing. Sharpening her claw. So lion, leopards, or cats in general. Oh, she's climbing actually. Who said lion cannot climb? Look at this now, yeah. Maybe she wants to have a good view. I mean, a better visual to see where the prey is. I can only imagine, like, you know, hunting. It's not. So now this lioness using some new technique. You can see she's watching and scanning, just like in the direction that she's looking. There's a nice clearing where we normally get like zebras, impala, kudu, all your plain game in general. She's a beautiful lioness. This is really, really beautiful. It's not the first time I see a lion climbing a tree, but I mean, sharing this with everyone in the whole world, it's just amazing. So lion can climb the tree, but not like leopards. I've seen leopards climbing, like, you know, maybe 5, 6 to 10 meter, like, you know, standing tall tree. So here, one of the advantages that I just saw is that the tree is bent down, because lion normally they are not designed for climbing, more of like, you know, land. You can see now she's watching back from the direction that she just came from, where those leopards were. A good area for kudu and this thickest nyala, daika. This is beautiful, folks. It's really nice. You can see she's trying more and more just to be on a high elevation. Can see that nice black color on a tip of the tail. I think I'm gonna try and maybe reposition and see if let's wait and see, maybe she wanna get down now. Oh, there she goes down now. So Lauren, she's alone. We're not really sure why, but few months ago there was a pride, and later on we found this, or one of the other guide found her on her own, and we kept on like picking up, like, you know, her presence around pride lands, and the pride came in the area, and no one knows why she didn't join the pride, but I'm not really sure why, because also when you check the time that she left the pride, she was still young to go on her own.
So we have left those elephants and we've crossed the Timavati riverbed, and now we are driving a road that runs parallel to the riverbed. So this is a good time for us to start looking for predators. It's cooling down nicely, and this is a really good area to look for leopard. You'll see the vegetation around us. It's quite thick, so this is a really good place for leopard. Now, for those of you that tune into the show regularly, you'll know the Nyala female, and she's also got a youngster with her, and she frequents this area. So this road is called South River Road, and we find her around this area quite often. So what we look for when a leopard is walking is the white tip of the tail, especially through thick vegetation like this. That's one of the first things you'll see. Otherwise they blend in really, really well. So that's what we're looking for at the moment, and we're also listening out for alarm calls. She might be out hunting a little bit earlier because it's so cool and because of this wind. So fingers crossed. A leopard would be nice, but then again, we're happy with anything we can find at this stage. I think we have been quite fortunate this afternoon though. We might just dip into the riverbed, I think, and do a little loop down there. It's always good to check the large trees along the drainage lines and in the riverbeds. That's what we'll do.
Yay, we made it. Nkuma's in the same spot. Just over the dam wall is the southern boundary. So tempting for all the other vehicles. In fact, I can see two vehicles trying to look over the dam wall. They don't seem to be too interested in anything this evening. I hope they've had a nice meal. Oh, look at these two. I feel like the cubs could eat a little bit more. There's one cub that's looking particularly round. It actually struggled to sit up when they were drinking earlier. Oh, look at that. So much play. They have moved ever so slightly though. I think about 20 meters or so. Sometimes they can be so much like house cats in their behavior. The stretches, the yawns. There we go. Fred, you'd like to know if lions snore. Well, I'm glad to say, Fred, that I haven't sat with a sleeping lion for long enough to figure out if they snored. Thank goodness you didn't hear what almost slipped out of my mouth. Yes, I haven't sat with a lion for long enough to know if they snore. But considering that their vocal folds are really, really thick, that's one of the reasons they can roar, but they can't purr. I would think that in certain positions particularly, they should be able to make some kind of a hum. Yes, do you agree? Do those Avoca males snore? Yes, I think that was a yes. Oh, don't be shy about it. Speaking of the Avoca males, I wonder where they are. At least the two that we know come down this far south. Blondie and Mohawk male. Look at that. Look how house cat-like their behavior is. Gorgeous. Yes, I'm sure you are not able to hear much at all, which is kind of good because my game drive radio is still beeping and beeping and beeping. Hopefully you'll hear that a little bit less with the wind. Feel head. Oh, I love the leg in the background. I had a sleep twitch. Look at this loving, tender care. After working with these animals for some time, I wonder how to say this nicely, what the benefit of just seeing a lion is, or seeing a leopard. If only people knew what they missed out on by getting to know them, like we do, and you do. Following their lives and their story. It's really, really something special that we get to do together. Sugar bits, that's a really good question. You'd like to know if lions or big cats have whiskers on the front of their legs like house cats do. They do, in fact, most mammals have those. Most mammals have whiskers on their chin, or basically around their mouth, so their upper lip, their chin, their forearms, or the front of their legs, and I'm missing out a spot that was on my mind just a second ago. Oh, on the eyebrows, that's it. Yes, they will. And all whiskers are modified hairs to increase that sense, that tactile sense of touch. The more information you can get from something, the better as an animal. So you have a strong sense of smell, a strong sense of taste, hearing, and touch. You would be the best of the best. But the way that nature works is only how much you need is given, unless there's a reason for giving too much. This looks like one of Rich Nose's boys. Oh, he looks like an awkward school photo hairstyle. That's what he looks like he has. Just lovely. Well, I'm going to try and stick with them as long as I can, but again, the lineup's getting busy. So, let's just hope that we can stay.
All right, we've decided to leave that little den site. It is getting a little bit late, and we don't want to be any hindrance to that animal coming back to its humble abode. But we were busy driving, and we thought, how beautiful is this? A little bit of Tswalu fine art, just on how these flowers are lit and illuminated by that setting sun. Really, really magnificent. Some spider webs going in the mix of things there. So really important tree in this area, but also one that's utilized not just birds. And birds want to be in places where it's difficult for predators to get in. And this will be one prime example, this little finely woven nest right over here. That is a nest that's made by a bird species called a scaly feathered weaver. And they typically build their nests within these thorny, spiny bushes because it is a formidable form of defense that this little tree has. If I get nice and close here, you can see why this tree gets the name Blackthorn. So over these branches are laden with these tiny little backward facing hooks. I mean, look how that hooks into my finger. It doesn't just puncture, it actually physically rips. And the size of them and how close they are to the branch, they are formidably strong. So anything that wants to try to get in here is going to have a very difficult task getting into that little nest. That little nest can hold a couple of birds through the winter period. They'll actually jump inside there and snuggle each other, exchange body heat through the colder periods that we experience through winter here. And they're very easy to recognize. First and foremost, where the nest has been made, but then also the material. They use the inflorescence. And what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the inflorescence is this specific part over here. So this is a species of grass called sour grass, and the inflorescence is this beautiful section of the grass, basically the flowering part of the grass. And grass are fairly unique when it comes to flowering. We spoke about vectors pollinating the beautiful Camelthorn. These beautiful organisms are solely pollinated by the wind. The flowers are so small that there's no vector small enough. There is vector small enough, but wind is a very efficient way of sending one's code, let's say, across to other plants and successfully transferring one's genes. Very, very important. But they would use this top part of the grass, the inflorescence or the flowering parts, to make that beautiful, wonderful nest. And getting a bit closer on what we were speaking about earlier, that beautiful three-thorn. This is one that's actually got a few more leaves on it. Very nice to see. Three-thorn, we spoke about and looked at over there. And then also the remnants of the seed pods. So that's when the flower's done its job, it obviously produces this beautiful seed, and this is the end after the flowering or seeding period that these seed casings have just been left behind. And it's a tangled mess, but creates perfect habitat for most animals seeking refuge under here. And look at that. Thank you for joining us. It is absolutely fantastic that we could experience this all together. Like I said, I could freak out by myself, but it is much better freaking out with everybody else. And just to let everybody know, we're still looking for a name for our trusty number 9. We have got a few names lined up. Thank you very much for the input. So if you guys can get a few more names to us, and we'll put it to polls.
Here we have got a giraffe. And we had a giraffe earlier, but this is a female giraffe. She's, smaller than the male. And I will just report to you, while you enjoy the sighting of this giraffe, that we had Tundi. Unfortunately, no matter what we did, we just couldn't get any signal, I'm afraid. But she looks well, she looks healthy, everything's okay in her world. And so hopefully we'll find her again tomorrow, or somebody will. No sign of her cub, who I nearly referred to as Wolfie, which would of course resulted in my demise. But I think he's on Torchwood at the moment. one of those sort of early summer evenings. It feels quite ominous here. The most overused word on safari. Ominous. Must be nice to have a tongue that long when you like to eat leaves. Pretty inconvenient if you were like us, I suppose. She's very limber. Quite impressive, really. Well, we're going to slowly make our way back towards the dam near camp, not Cam, the dam near camp, and see if Kalamba hasn't pitched up there.
That sounds like a great idea, especially since, I expected James to produce the last-minute leopard. But at least he got to see her. Always think they have a special relationship. James will always ask about Thandi first. It's lovely. These guys doing much of the same. There are other vehicles in the sighting, so you may see the flashes of their cameras. Oh, look at that. I'm good at grooming too. I can scratch myself and groom at the same time. It looks like a toy the way he's doing that. Everybody sharing the love. And this is how it starts before they go about their evening's business. Some grooming, yawning, of course the defecating, which is starting already. It's been wafting over. And then they'll be off. Maybe they'll move further north and into Djuma. Maybe they'll move further south and out. Either way, I'm really glad that we got to spend this time together, especially when they came down to drink. I think that was my favorite bit of the day. Look at this boy still going with the leg and the grooming. Yes, you clean that fur. Hopefully they'll get lucky tonight with a meal. Like I said, they don't look bad at all. I mean, the cubs look great, actually. Didn't even mention that. They look great, considering the last time I saw them. Spots of mange, but they're looking great. I just hope that everyone is fat and full tomorrow morning and still on Djuma. Well, speaking of tomorrow morning, it is that time. And thank you for your questions and your comments. We'll see you in the morning for Sunrise Safari. Bye-bye for now.